Ready? I now call to order the March 27th, 2023 Planning and Zoning Board meeting. We now have a quorum. Are there any changes to the agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Conflict of interest statement. In accordance with North Carolina Government's Ethics Act, it is the duty of every board member to avoid both conflict of interest and appearance of conflict, and are instructed to refrain from participating in any matter coming before this board if there is a conflict of interest or appearance of such conflict. If a board member has a known conflict of interest or appearance of conflict with respect to any matter coming before this board today, please identify the conflict and refrain from any participation in the matter involved. Does any member of the board have a conflict of interest in any matter coming before the board today? All right, is there a motion to approve the regular minutes of February 27th, 2023?
I make a motion to approve the minutes from February 27th, 2023.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Old business, we have none at this time. New business. Adoption of amended rules of procedure. Consideration of amending rules of procedure reflecting the change in board meeting time from 7 p.m. to 6 p.m. Do you have anything else to add to that, Lynn?
This was just a request that was made by the board at last month's meeting, and in order to meet the time limit in which you all have to review the recommended amendment, we held off on this until this month, but we are just bringing this before you so you all can adopt that amended version of the rules of procedure, and then we will start meeting at 6 o'clock next month, which will be April 24th.
Okay, thank you, Lynn. Is there a motion to approve the rules of procedure as amended?
Make a motion to approve the rules of procedure as amended with regards to meeting times.
Is there a second? Second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, case number RZ 2301, Premax Properties, representing Jerry and Joy Klein. Request to rezone a 10.5 acre parcel located on 726 South Main Street on the west side of South Main Street, just north of Burkdale Road, from Iredell County RA to residential agriculture, the town of Troutman highway business. I will now turn it over to Lynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you stated, this is a request for a rezoning. The applicant this evening is Premax Properties. They are representing the owners, who are Jerry and Joy Klein. The property is currently in the county and it's zoned RA. The request is this property be brought into the town of Troutman and rezoned to HB, which is highway business. I do want to point out before we get started that this is a traditional rezoning, so there's no site plan that's required as part of this submittal. What we're considering is the property could be any use that would be permitted in the HB district. The property size is 10.5 acres. It is located, as you can see on the overhead, right here off of Highway 21. It's directly across the street from where the Douglas property is, where the Troutman, the TPA Group's logistics center is planned. It's also just to the north of Rocky Creek, which is a mixed residential development. There's also some commercial out parcels that were approved as part of that project. And then in this area is the Meadows Apartments, which are currently under construction. That property is also zoned HB. This is the current zoning map, so you can get a little better feel for that. This orange is that town HB. The blue is the conditional LI, which is the TPA Group's industrial center. And then again, the CZRM for that Rocky Creek project here. The land use map does show this property being in medium density residential. I do want to point out that the TPA Group as well as Rocky Creek are also medium density residential. We have been seeing a transition in this area from residential use to higher density residential as well as commercial and industrial uses. We expect and anticipate that that will continue to happen just due to the fact that these properties are so close to the exit 42 interchange. The development standards on this, again, this is a by right zoning, so all the uses and development standards are established by the UDO. There's no concept plan attached like we typically see with the conditional zoning. And I do want to point out that an annexation application has been submitted by the applicant. That will be going to Town Council next month, as well as this rezoning request. Staff has reviewed this, and the information we presented with you today. We would recommend that this be approved, subject to a couple of things. Basically, as I stated, this site is very close to exit 42, and it lends itself to highway business use. There also have been recent changes in zoning in this area. As I stated a couple times, that Douglas property that was rezoned to LI, and then there's also HB at the corner for the Meadows Apartments and some of the uses along Barkdale. This is an example of a statement of consistency. If you also choose to adopt this, that's the end of staff's presentation. I believe the applicant is here as well, or someone representing the applicant if you have any questions for her. If not, I'm happy to address any questions you might have from staff.
Okay, thank you. I've got one question. The rezoning signs, I noticed there's one on the property beside it. Is that a mistake, or is that?
That was a
I know.
rezoning that we received for some townhomes. It's actually been withdrawn. We need to just go remove the sign, but that was a separate case. This is the property that has the, I believe this is, the one that you're talking about is on the property that has the storage building sales. That is not this application.
Yeah, okay. I knew it wasn't, but I didn't know for sure
Right, yes, yes.
because it's right beside.
It is, it is.
All right, thank you. And if the applicant would like to come up and speak.
Hi, y'all. I'm Kristen. I actually work for the engineer that's going to be working with the developer for this project. And I mean, they've described quite a bit about it, but I just want to get a little bit more into what the specific use that is proposed is.
I don't think we can consider that with
Yeah.
this
Oh, okay.
request because it's not conditional.
Okay.
I mean, you can hint, right?
We can't consider it for our.
Talk to me after class.
Yes, thank you, thank you, Mr. Farmer.
Okay, well then, in that case, we are aiming for a traditional rezoning to highway business. With the things that are around it, we think it's a decent option for that one. Yeah, thank you. We, not getting into the use, but because there's the conditional mixed residential to the south, and then there was a proposed plan, I guess it's since been redrawn, but to the north, there was also a residential. We were planning on having a buffer all the way around, a vegetated buffer just for separation purposes, and then it also falls within the Lake Norman protected watershed. So we're going to have to go through the high density development permit process because we're planning a little bit over the 24% that is the maximum allowed for the low density option, but it's not going to be much over. We're planning on leaving the whole back half of the property essentially, so it's a little over 4 acres. So I guess not quite half, but a little over 4 acres in the back as completely undisturbed. Yeah, it's going to require a stormwater control system, but we also are really comfortable with that and ready to take care of that. If y'all have any questions, if I missed anything, please feel free.
Anyone have any questions?
Oh yeah, my name is Kristen James. Henson Foley. Yeah.
Keep in mind that if this is a by right zoning, a driveway permit will be requested by DOT. And since it is an NC and US route, they may request turning lanes and or TIA.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we now open the meeting up for public comment. Is there anyone like to speak on this rezoning? Okay. Any comments, Kim? Did we receive any? Okay. Now close the public comment time. Any comments from the board?
You put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this. What do you think? With this land development? Is this something that you foresee?
I really can't speak to it.
Okay.
And Mr. Taylor, too, it's interesting you bring that up because I kind of had the same thought when I started writing the staff report. That is one area that the committee really did not spend a lot of time focusing on. I think that they felt like they just didn't have a lot of concerns. Would you say, Mark, that you would agree with that, that
I would
area
agree with
wasn't
that.
an area of great concern?
I know that there's, with the map, you've got a different mirage of colors, and trying to be consistent so that you have the flow with residential above it and now commercial above it, and then you have county still above it as of yet. So it's undetermined. Just trying to make sure that we have a flow is what I've got concerns with. Nothing to say, but
Yeah, and like I said, I think this is an area that's transitioning more towards retail, industrial, and higher density residential. Properties in this area that are currently still in the county more than likely will come into the town for our services, our water sewer services.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, that's just a little piece. I mean,
that was, the idea was to have a gateway into the community, and some of the things that have actually happened didn't really follow the plan. And it's been somewhat revised, and also some on the other side of the interstate was supposed to be highway, or highway business that ended up being residential, which, I mean, I think we have a plan for a reason. And without knowing what's going in there, which would be a conditional zoning, you can't, with a traditional zoning, you can't really tell us that, because we can't consider it. So everything that could be under highway business, we have to consider as a possibility. And we were kind of told down here where the concrete plant is, that was going to be, we bought into something we weren't supposed to consider. And
I listen to it every night.
it was supposed to be storage units.
That's on the other side, but yeah, I mean, I agree. Like I said, I have no problem with this. I just know that with the different components, I would like to see, like you said, a gateway of Main Street, having it to where it's more commercial, more vibrant sidewalks, multifamily. And I think this would be, somewhat of a great transition, but we just need to keep the transition going, back towards town in that regard.
Yeah, I would be more inclined to consider it if it were conditional, so we know what it is.
But by right, she's got it. She's got
I
it.
know
pegged.
that.
She's
I know
good.
that. We're not determining that, so that may determine how I vote, though.
No.
One of my concerns is we sat on Mark and I did this land use map, and one of the concerns from the public that we heard over and over again the last time we adopted a land use map is that people could just come in and arbitrarily or just have it changed after we had already spent months and garnered public input and got everybody's opinion and everyone's feedback and allowed every voice to be heard, voted on it, adopted it, and now here we are less than a year into it and we're already contemplating changing it. Excuse me?
Changing it without all that public input.
We
This
had
is a
the
public
opportunity for
hearing.
input.
Understood, but establishing the plan was a much larger ordeal with more opportunity for public input. But to your point, yes, it is public.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I would also say we've talked about a lot is the erosion of those plans, not just changing one parcel, but we change one parcel and then the next one comes in and says, well, we're surrounded by this particular type of zoning, so we might as well do it. And then the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And this, there are 2 parcels in this vicinity, maybe make a case for 3 or 4 that, let's say, did not belong to the plan to start with, and exceptions were made, and now we're wanting to add to that because the others are already there.
I would ask you to consider that one thing that we have heard very loud and clear from the community is the desire for more retail uses in town. And this is probably an area where retail uses are going to locate, not necessarily medium density housing. So please just keep that in mind, that this is an area where you might want to consider, with the changes that have occurred, that this would be an area where you might have some of that retail.
And we don't know that this is retail, because we don't
Well,
know
I
what it
can
is.
say it's retail. We can't really talk about what the use is and what the site plan looks like, but it is a retail use, which is allowed within HB.
It could be the same thing that's across the road in the corner, by right.
Are you talking about the
That's highway business.
apartments?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just because that's what they say it is now, they could sell it. But it may not, it may fall through, they may have all the plans in the world to do that, but it may fall through. Without conditional zoning, we don't know that it's retail. And we don't know what it is. Medium density turns into high density because it's highway business, because it's allowed.
And that is definitely a decision you have to make with the traditional rezoning.
That's a good point.
And just to be clear, Randy, that doesn't mean that's not their intention, but should it fall through and they sell it to the next owner, they could develop it into anything highway business. Yeah, correct. Yeah, it's not saying that there's any intent other than to do exactly what they say, but that may not come through. Well, we don't know what they want to do because we're not supposed to. Well, I'm just saying, it's been said that it's. Right, correct. So I have a problem with that myself personally.
Make the motion.
Well, before you make the motion, is this easy to change? They're asking for traditional, right?
Well, they'll have to go through, if they want to do conditional, they have to go back through the process. They can't do that today.
Oh, well, they could do it next month, right?
Well, sure, if they get everything in line, sure.
Well, I
they
guess
can.
I'm thinking the same thing you are. I mean, I'd like to know what they're gonna do.
But I caution you by saying it this way: if you make everything conditional, that's the upper governing bodies don't like that. You got to have some by rights. I mean, you know what I'm saying? If you have everything, do it now.
You mean the council?
No, not them. We went to the League of Municipalities and we had that meeting or training back about 4 years ago, I think, 4 or 5 years ago. And I forgot, Charlotte or somebody got reprimanded because it was all conditional. So they had to pick and choose and how they built it. And I think that was a slap on the wrist from like League of Municipalities. I may be talking outside of my head, but I mean, I think there was something where you couldn't use conditional as a piece to figure out what's going in and how to make it work. If it's by right, it's by right.
I mean, we can't ask you to do that. That's up to you completely. We have what's brought before us.
Right.
And that's up to you all to make other decisions if you want to, but, that's,
Can I ask a naive question? It seems to me that we've put time and money into setting a standard, and now a few months later, we're changing it, which possibly was what occurred a few years back when I first got to Troutman. I don't know if I'm understanding this correctly, but I think if we start making exceptions, we're only shooting ourselves in the foot. Am I misreading this?
No,
Oh, I shouldn't have said that.
You
No.
set
you're
precedent,
not misreading it.
No,
but it's not bound in stone, this plan, but it is something that has had effort put into and public input. And I'm personally not comfortable.
Then we gotta think about the legalities of this, because somebody to ourselves has some problems with telling.
Well, I mean, we're not asking them to do anything they can do as far as conditional. We're not asking for that. We can't ask for that. But I'm just not comfortable personally. I'm just one person with that zoning, with what all is allowed in that zoning. Any other comments? Okay. Okay, is there a motion regarding rezoning RZ 23-01?
I make a motion to deny the request for case number RZ-22-07,
23-01.
01.
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We need a motion regarding consistency statement of RZ 23-01.
I'm looking at these the consistency statements. Lynn, I think it might have the wrong one written down there, but that's all right. So with regards to RZ-2301, rezoning to highway business is inconsistent with the 2035 future land use map. And therefore, we reject or deny the rezoning.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Case number TA 23-06, text amendment, request to amend Article 6.2.3, additional requirements for certain permitted signs, providing language that would allow off-site monument signs for multi-tenant retail centers. We'll now turn it over to Lynn.
Yes, this is a request for a text amendment. This is being brought to you all by staff. We recently had a request. I'm sure you all are aware we are getting another Food Lion in town, and it will be a multi-tenant shopping center with out parcels. And they came to us with their sign application, specifically with their monument signage to put at the entrance to that shopping center. And because there are out parcels there, they will not own the land that the sign sits on. And there's a glitch in our ordinance that prohibits that from happening. So we reviewed our sign, this Article 6, which is the sign section of our ordinance, and we are asking that you all consider adopting some language that would allow them to put a sign up. On the overhead, I found this online. I thought this might kind of help give you a visual. I don't even know where this is, but this is a shopping center with out parcels. And a lot of times there'll be a monument sign sitting out here in front of the shopping center, which is exactly what the new shopping center down off 21 is looking to do. Actually, I think they want to put their sign on this corner here. But because these out parcels are typically sold, the owner of the shopping center does not own them. Our ordinance does not allow what's called an off-site sign, so that causes an issue. We couldn't give them a sign permit for a monument sign. So we put together some language. Andrew and I kind of put our heads together, and we came up with the following, which would actually be an amendment to Article 622. There's a section there, G. We would recommend adding this. Excuse me, it does not exist now. We would add it, and it would read as follows, that multi-tenant monument signs where there's a multi-tenant shopping center that does not have frontage on a major or minor thoroughfare or arterial roadway, that the multi-tenant monument sign, as permitted in Article 22D, may be placed off-site as follows. So these would be the requirements in which this could occur. One would be that that sign has to be located on property that's within 500 feet of the commercial center. In other words, they can't go put an off-site sign up at exit 42. It has to be within 500 feet of the main building or shopping center there that it's advertising. And only if the shopping center does not have frontage on a major or minor thoroughfare or arterial roadway. And just so you understand that that new Food Lion is going to actually front Home Improvement Boulevard. And then on the opposite side of Home Improvement are the out parcels that will front 21. So they really need some signage out there on 21 so people know that that grocery store is back there. So that we're asking that that would be permitted. We would also suggest that the property where the sign is located must be located on a major or minor thoroughfare or arterial roadway. So the sign has to be out there on that major road. And an easement agreement between the owners of the commercial center, that sign, and the property owner where the sign is to be placed must be shown, must be provided and recorded in the form of a plat with the Register of Deeds office. So what we would suggest is that we allow a sign on those out parcels as long as it's within 500 feet, it's on a major or minor arterial or thoroughfare, and that they have an easement agreement with the property owner where the sign sits so that they have the ability to locate that sign there. I want to point out we do have situations like this in town that probably occurred, like the Home Depot, or excuse me, the Lowe's, for instance. They have a monument sign that sits out front there that's on a piece of property that's owned by one of those out parcels that may have been permitted under an older ordinance, possibly, where this was allowed, but our current ordinance does not permit this. So we just wanted to make sure that we weren't giving these shopping centers or putting them at a disadvantage, because we all know that these shopping centers really rely on advertising, even though I do not think that grocery store will have any problems. But, you know, that was the main reason for this. So staff would recommend it's approved as written. And again, here's a suggested consistency statement for your review. If you have any questions, I'm happy to address those.
Thank you, Lynn.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. Are there any other parcels in the back by Food Lion that down the road would also want a monument sign?
Possibly, not within this center. Like, we would only allow the one sign would be allowed per road frontage for the shopping center. We're not changing any of that. But there is some other vacant land where they may want to, for whatever they build there, they may be seeking something similar for identification, but it will not be on the same site as the Food Lion.
Okay, and does the monument sign, is it just advertising one business, or does it have like multiple businesses on it?
It allows a certain number of square footage for the businesses that are located in the multi-tenant center.
Do we have restrictions on its size and its height?
We do, yes. It can be 6 feet in height, 10 by 12 on 21 in the HB district.
Okay, and who's responsible for keeping up the property if it's on somebody else's property? The upkeep around it? You know, if it's on a parcel that's not developed right now and there's weeds and everything growing up, who's responsible for the upkeep?
Well, you know, technically it's the property owner or the owner of the easement. That's why we're suggesting that an easement be granted for the sign, so that we can go after the owner of the sign as well as the property owner.
Okay.
Or that didn't sound real good, but we could issue them notices of violation through code enforcement.
Got it. Okay.
Any other questions?
I think I'm gonna ask the same question. One sign for this location, not in multiple places.
Well,
like
one per road frontage,
one
so
per
they can
road
have
frontage.
one out on 21,
Mhm.
and then they could have one technically off of Cross Tie, correct? If they so chose. Do they have frontage on Cross Tie? They have frontage there. So this language, they wouldn't need this for that sign.
Gotcha. But then the major sign would have multiple tenants, you know, it would be all of them.
That's correct.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, I now open the meeting up for public comment. Is there anyone who'd like to speak on this text amendment? Kim, I guess you didn't get any. Oh, okay. I will now close the public comment time. Any other comments from the board? Okay. Is there a motion regarding text amendment TA 23-06?
I make a motion, recommend approval of text amendment case number TA-23-06 as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We need a motion regarding consistency statement of TA 23-06.
With regard to TA-23-06, I make a motion regarding consistency of this action, that this text amendment is consistent with the 2018 strategic plan and the Unified Development Ordinance, and reasonable and in the public interest, as it would provide language allowing monument signage for multi-tenant commercial centers, providing Troutman the ability to create more effective signage for commercial users while also benefiting the town.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Item D, bike pedestrian plan overview. We now have a presentation of the draft bike and pedestrian plan. Staff is seeking comments to be forwarded to council for consideration with plan adoption. I will now turn it over to Andrew.
Thank you. I had sent out a link to the draft plan for all of you to look at. It was a couple hundred pages, and I don't even want to print that out for myself, so I hope you all had the time to look at it. What we're looking at today is hopefully, this has been hanging out here for a while, and I'm looking to close this process and get this plan adopted. So ultimately, I'm just going to go over the plan background, the recommendations of the plan, and what I'm looking for this body tonight is just a recommendation to town council to go ahead and approve this plan so we can finally get it adopted. Just a quick background of the plan. The North Carolina Department of Integrated Mobility Division, this is a wing of NCDOT, funded this plan with a local match from the town. This all occurred before Lynn or I were on staff, but I believe the local match was something like $5,000. Total plan was $60,000. The point of contacts for this plan, yours truly for the town, we had Alex Rotenberry with the NCDOT, and then the consultant that did this work was VHB, and the person we worked with, name is Luba Zaeva, and she did a very good job getting everything organized and basically put together what I'm presenting for you tonight. This process did start in July of 2021. We held 4 steering committee meetings, and some of you in this room were on the steering committee. So we did have some community advocates on the steering committee to help develop this plan. We held a walking field visit and a bicycle visit. The walking field visit, we were allowed to have some steering committee members. Unfortunately, when we did the inventory for the bicycle visit, it was during one of those COVID breakouts where we weren't allowed to have any organized town events. So it was basically just myself, a member from CartPo, and a member from the consultant team. But being myself, riding my bike a lot around this area, I probably didn't really need to go on the visit, but you know what, why not, right? What we did is we developed a list of priority projects, and then we have these cool cut sheets that I'll show you in the presentation, and they're just mainly visuals of what some of our infrastructure projects can look like. What we can do with this plan, if adopted, we can basically seek grant funding, so that's a very important thing. And then some of the smaller projects, we've got some cost estimates high level. smaller intersection projects, pedestrian crossings. Hopefully the town can maybe look to fund itself and get those improvements on the ground. Just a quick project schedule. There were 3 sections. The first was just an existing condition summary. This lasted from about August of 2021 to about Christmas of 2021. We held 2 steering committee meetings, a public workshop, and an online survey. Again, this one was kind of interrupted by the COVID restrictions, but we did end up getting almost 300 comments on our public survey. So in a town this size, I think that's a pretty good number of comments. The second step was just the analysis and outreach. We had another steering committee meeting, and we had another public workshop and survey. What we did with this public workshop is we set up a booth at the Sprint in the Spring 5K event, and Mark was there and gave us some comment on the plans, and so we ended up getting probably somewhere between 30 and 40 comments at that. So again, we were pretty satisfied with the comments we got from the citizens. And then the final step was the plan development, which started summer 2022, and this has been developed and ready to roll since August 2022. The North Carolina Department of Transportation Integrated Mobility Division has to make the final improvement since the grant was from them. So we're still sitting on them, waiting for them to give us the final approval. But you know, if we want to get some improvements with developers or whatnot with this plan, I think it's important to move forward and not wait so we don't miss anything. Plan highlights. This plan identifies 78 projects to improve the walking and bicycling in town. This is broken out by 20 with pedestrian crossings or intersection improvements, 24 sidewalk projects, 28 multi-use path projects, 4 on-road bicycle improvement projects, and 2 bridge improvement projects. Again, just some more highlights. It does identify some implementation strategies, which if you go through the plan, that was chapter 4. It does give high-level cost estimates. So with those estimates, we really know what's realistic to pursue. Obviously, if a project is $4.5 million, we're probably not going to look at that one as seriously as a $75,000 intersection improvement. The plan identifies programs and policies ranging from complete streets, which is basically any kind of street improvements. We want all modes of transportation covered. It's something we work with DOT with. It mentions some education opportunities. If we do adopt the plan, again, town staff will be able to pursue grant opportunities if those projects are in the plan, which with 78 of them, pretty much anything in town, we'll be able to point to this plan and say it's on an adopted plan. Also, by developing the plan, again, I mentioned the developers. If it's shown on a plan and a developer comes in and develops a project where one of these projects are on their property, we can again point to this plan saying, okay, our UDO states if it's on an approved plan, you've got to install this. So again, we can make developers install what's in this document here. And then the last one, with the criteria used to evaluate these particular projects, it was pretty easy to understand. They consisted of connections to downtown or Lake Norman State Park, completing an existing network, minimizing conflict with motor vehicles, traffic volumes, and then cost effectiveness and environmental justice. This is just some pictures of some of the events we had. Some of us in this room are actually in some of these pictures, including yours truly. Plan recommendations. The first thing that was identified was priority corridors. And you'll see these are just the major spines in town that actually connect destinations to destinations, which include US 21 and NC 15, Wagner Street, Perth Road, State Park Road, St. John's Road, Tally Road, and Old Mountain Road. These are our 78 facility recommendations. I know this map is hard to see. The list was actually included in your agenda packet. But what you can see in red is the sidewalks. Blue, which we don't have too many, but those were the on-road bicycle improvements. And green would be your multi-use paths. And then the ones in orange are intersection improvements and pedestrian crossings. And this is just another map, same thing, but it's more focused on downtown since most of the projects were included in the downtown area. We did identify 7 priority projects. These scored the best, and most of them were pedestrian crossing projects in town. This list basically states what these projects are. And again, I think this slide shows it better. These are how they scored. With this list, you can see the composite score over here. We've got 9 that either scored 80 or 75. We chose 7 out of the 9. As you can see, that this project right here, Wagner Street Sidewalk, this number right here, this 5930, that's a North Carolina STIP number. What this means is this project is actually funded. So while it is a priority, we do have money for it, and we're currently in the design phase of that project. So we didn't include that on our priority list. And the second one is this sidewalk along Leon Street. Currently, there are no sidewalks on either side of Leon Street. So with these priority projects, something we'd like to pursue in the near future, it doesn't make sense to pay money for a piece of sidewalk that goes nowhere at this present time. These are the cut sheets that the consultant put together. These are more just a visual of showing, multi-use paths, what can happen. And I'll go over these quickly. I shared these with you back in October. This is the crossing at US 21 and Old Mountain Road, which is one of the priority projects in town. This just shows what it could look like. We've kind of get some crossings here to extend, I guess, just to cross Murdoch Road from one section of the Greenway to the other. We'd lose that slip lane on Old Mountain Road to kind of make it safer to cross the street on this side. And then you see we'd add some sidewalk on the western side of US 21. And then again, it could look something like this. The second one is another one that scored pretty high. It's just a mid-block crossing right out here in front of Town Hall, actually, from the other side of the street. And what you can see here is what they call an RRFB, which is a rectangular rapid flashing beacon, which I don't know if that would be, with the amount of traffic 21 carries. This is just more of an idea. We'd have to get some studying and get some DOT approval in order to make some improvements at this crosswalk. But it's an idea of something we could put there to warn motorists that there's a crossing there. It could help people on that side of 21 get over here and use our park, which I think would be beneficial. And then as a town, any new town hall or any activity in this area happens, it'd probably be, it's probably going to be an important pedestrian crossing in the future. This one is just a sidewalk project on the other side of Main Street. This is from Old Mountain Road to Scroggs Street. And again, it's just, this part just shows a sidewalk on the western side of 21. And we've got just a little visual showing, it looks like a grandfather walking down the street with his granddaughter. This one would be a multi-use path which would eventually extend from downtown, down Wagner Street, and down State Park Road to the State Park. This is one of those that's probably a little bit cost prohibited, but again, we're just going to show the visual of what it could look like. Here you see a jogger jogging down a multi-use path. This is on the western side of Wagner Street, heading down towards State Park Road. Another trail we had was the Brookside Trail, and this is going to coincide with the Brookside development that's currently under construction over there off of, I guess it's off of Wagner Street. It's this one is going to be a natural trail, so we're not looking to improve it with any concrete or asphalt. Just leave it in its natural form. And as you can see, it's kind of just showing, it wanders through the woods. You've got a family walking down through the trail, hopefully enjoying a nice autumn day. And then the last one here, this is just showing what a bike lane could look like. This is Oswald Amity Road heading out towards the proposed new high school. And here you just see a bike lane. And this looks to be one of the best bicyclists, Dutch cyclist, Matthew Vanderpoel, visited Troutman, and he's probably riding about 30 miles an hour down Oswald Amity Road. So anyhow, it's just a visual of what things could look like. Next steps. Again, we're looking for a recommendation to move forward with adoption of the plan tonight. This will be presented to Town Council in April. It is currently under review by NCDOT. We don't anticipate any real changes to the plan, just maybe some small text amendments or just small edits that they may find. Again, once that's done, we can close the project out. This will be included as part of our ongoing mobility plan. And I don't know if we've discussed that before, but the town did get some funding from CARTPO to update our actual roadway plan. So what we plan to do with this bicycle pedestrian plan is to incorporate it into the roadway plan so we can have all this stuff into one document. And that's currently ongoing. We look to have that completed probably about October of this year. And this board will be updated. The process has just started, so we're still in the infancy phases. Again, with this, we've got the chance to apply for future grants. And then, again, anything that's on a plan, we've got more authority to make other people put in the improvements for us, which is a benefit of these plans. And with that, I'll open it up for any comments or questions or thoughts, and I'll stop my rambling for the time being.
So I'm clear, the adoption of the plan is these that were high scoring, or adoption of the entire plan?
The adoption is the whole thing.
Is there a, and obviously it doesn't really matter, but is there a process for what everything will be done in? Is this the actual order that it'll be completed?
Well, the plan, it's kind of like with the land use plan we did earlier. There's recommendations. Those 7 priority projects are recommended as the highest priority. However, if you know, situation changes and something that's not one of those priority projects is something the town would like to pursue, we don't have to follow it to a T.
There was a couple of projects you mentioned that were already funded. There was a number on Talley Street.
That's
Is that
right.
also one?
Yeah, Talley Street, with that Wagner Street project I'd mentioned, that's actually called the Downtown Sidewalk Project in the STIP, and it's got 3 segments. There's a segment of sidewalk on Rumpel Street from Main Street to Thomas Street, that section of Wagner Street from Main Street down to West Ave, and then there's a section on Talley Street from Main Street down to West Ave. All 3 of those are part of that project. They're funded. Right now, NCDOT is reviewing the 25% design phase of those plans. So hopefully we will get feedback on those, get those plans taken care of, and we can start on acquiring any right-of-way necessary that we might need in the future. And it is any project you get with NCDOT using discretionary funds, it's great to get the funding, but you usually have got somewhere between 5 and 7 years before you actually see anything on the road. So it's part of the red tape process, but we do have the funding secured, so we are moving forward with those 3 projects.
Now, what happens when, I know the cost of everything's went up. How does that work?
That's going to take some creativity by town staff as well as our town council.
Well played. I like that.
Okay.
A lot of these multi-use trails that cut across private property, what's the plan there for right of way and other things?
Well, when those come into fruition, there'll be definitely a coordination with property owners, whether it be property acquisition, easements. We'll have to get out and get with property owners to see how we can get those.
UP 11 goes straight through the middle of my house.
Yeah, in these lines, nothing's been engineered on this plan. They're just basically concept lines. So
You just bought your house, man.
I mean, maybe it's a half-mile long and they're estimating $1.4 million.
You got a deal.
Well, I'm sure, looking at this, it goes through about 3 other houses, so by the time it's done.
It's a wide brush stroke. Yeah. This is good. I think this is phenomenal. I like this.
I'm happy with the consultant.
No, I mean, as far as, I didn't mean it like, I meant like
I'm just saying.
the concept of this, having a multimodal transportation is awesome for Troutman, for getting
yes,
them to
without
do it
doubt.
that way.
Yeah.
Going through somebody's property, I have major concerns. I've already experienced that part of it. I understand. I can feel your pain.
No, I wish that there had been different circumstances and all the meetings could have been held in person and all that. I mean, I was very excited to be a part of the first part of it, and then obviously COVID kind of derailed a lot of the plans that we had there. So I share your sentiment, Mark. Especially anything that can bring traffic to and from the park into Troutman, and if we were successfully developed downtown into something that people could come to, that would be excellent.
they gotta tweak, I mean, this, the concepts he's talking about are broad strokes. And that's, yeah, but just the conceptual part of it, when they get down to wherever the priority is, they'll
Yeah,
work through that part of
I don't see
it.
that being a large priority, but it's worrisome that it's there,
Mhm.
and I'm probably not the only one as you get down through the list.
Oh, this goes through my property too. I mean, it's neat how they're proposing to do that.
Neat.
I'm trying to be nice. But, you know, it's nice to have the, you know, bike path or a, you know, wheelchair accessible, having that be able to go through downtown and see the shops and the way it is, and not drive a car. I mean, that's nice. That way you get to meet your neighbors and do that. Working out the logistics on it's gonna be the fun part.
And I'll say the last plan we had was a pedestrian plan, which was adopted in 2008. And it basically just looked at the town center. And so it didn't take into account any of the development that's gone on the other side of 77 going down past exit 42. So I thought it was a good idea with this plan to at least show those corridors. Because, you know, obviously if you want to go to destinations, that may be our retail center, or if you want to go get a bite to eat or something and ride your bike. You know, it's probably pie in the sky at this point, but at least we've got it on an adopted plan.
So, Andrew, on that, there's really only 2 suggestions, or maybe I'm not seeing them all, for like on-road bike improvements.
Mhm.
Is there a reason why we didn't have more, or what's that?
Yeah, with the public comment we got, the majority of people just were not comfortable with having on-road bicycle facilities. They would rather see the multi-use paths to be separated from the traffic. And I guess I can't blame them, because most of those corridors are, you know, your typical farm-to-market roads, which are basically carrying more traffic than they were designed to carry.
The alternative there that maybe most of the people making those comments are not aware of is those bikes will just end up on the road. Right?
And you know, that's if the bicyclists want to ride on the road, I mean, they can go ahead and put their safety at danger if they've got a multi-use path they could use. So,
Well, I mean, okay. A lot of those multi-use paths are paved, or they're like gravel paths?
well, what you're seeing on the lines are basically, they're going to be paved.
Any other questions? Okay, I'll now open the meeting up for public comment. Anyone would like to speak? Okay, Kim. All right. Close the public comment time. Any other comments from the board?
This is a pretty thorough plan. It's good.
Yeah, I do. I'd like to just take a minute to say I appreciate the work that VHB did. My first time working directly with them, and I was impressed with the thoroughness of their work, so I'll give them a thumbs up on the job they've done.
All right. Is there a motion regarding Troutman bicycle and pedestrian plan?
I make a motion that we adopt the Troutman bicycle and pedestrian plan as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We don't really need a consistency statement for this, do we? Okay. Other business. I will now turn it over to Lynn.
Hey, I got a question for this. Since the EB, whatever, the downtown DOT got off the TIP project, and we adopt this, then this becomes a, this will be, now has to be incorporated into the TIP project, correct?
You're talking about when they finally do the roadway?
Yes, because since now they took it off,
Yes.
and then we've adopted something now, so we've got a corridor with a multi-lane facility, or a multi-use path from here to 42 that the DOT's gotta pay for.
That's right.
Okay,
That's per that complete streets policy that NCDOT adopted in 2019. If you have an adopted plan showing any kind of improvements, DOT has to install them. Now, there's certain standards, like they'll probably only go up to a 10-foot wide multi-use path. So if you're looking at, if your plan calls for like a 14-foot, they call those betterments. So the town would have to pay the difference between, but they'll have to install some kind of improvement along that corridor if it's shown on an adopted plan.
Mm-hmm. Good, okay. Thank you, I'm sorry.
Okay, Lynn, do you have any?
The only thing I wanted to mention is that next month at our regular meeting time at 6 o'clock, we will have training. The COG will be here to conduct training. I sent out a couple emails. If you all have anything that you would like to discuss or that you would like the COG to go over with you guys, just let me know, and I'll shoot it to the trainers, and they will make sure they put it on their agenda. But if you're thinking of any questions that may come up that you've had during our meeting, just some things you'd like to have clarified, just shoot me an email, and I'll make sure I get it to them.
Okay.
And that is all.
The basis was, one was going to be Robert's Rules of Order, correct?
That is one of the things they are going to go over. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And from last month, did we discussed finding out something about the
And I think I sent an email out about that as well. Did I not?
Yeah, I saw that.
Okay.
I think I heard it was no for the attorney, but they're still looking at the TIA.
the TIA having it before? I don't remember seeing it.
Well, one thing that Andrew and I, we are trying to maybe figure out a better way to do our TIAs. Some other towns have some systems that they use where they bring in an engineering firm. Kimley Horn does this for a lot of towns. The town I previously worked for, when Andrew was in Davidson, they used Kimley Horn. And basically what happens is we control the TIA process through them. The developers will have to pay the town, who in turns turns around and pays Kimley Horn. So Kimley Horn's working for us and not the developer. We're thinking that might help with some of the questions that are coming up. It can help us kind of maybe control the timing. And we're not paying for that study, but we are using funds that the developer gives to the town, and there's a contract there. But it's a system that I was involved with there, and it worked very well. So that's something that I'm looking at putting in my budget this year and discussing with council during that budget process. So those are things that we're looking to do to hopefully improve that process.
Can you help refresh my memory? Because I'm looking back at our minute notes about that, Lynn, and you referenced something called an MOU.
Yeah, that's something similar, and I think we could use that with that same process. We did do a little bit of research on that. Towns like Mooresville, it's really a contract that the town's entering into with DOT, but we really are already sort of doing that with when we do conditional zonings, which is where most of our TIAs come from. Those are the size of projects that are tipping the need for the TIA, and all that really is putting into some sort of form where the mayor's signing it, that we send to DOT saying, here's what we approved, here's the conditions, and this is what the town is looking for. Whether that's something additional that you all place or the council places on an applicant, if we have that in some sort of, memo of understanding or just some sort of I don't know if contract's really a good word for it, but just something in writing that's official from the town that we would send to DOT. Did I get that right? I know that Andrew did a little bit of research on that with Mooresville, and that is something that we definitely could do through this the TIA process, bringing an engineering firm in, and we could all kind of roll all that together. And I think we would. Another thing I think that would be helpful to have an engineering firm that focuses on transportation helping us is when we do have some of these projects come to us, they can be looking at things that maybe we as a town need to be thinking about moving forward with these road projects, that we don't have transportation staff here and on staff to look at those kind of things. And then the engineers that we do have, they are really focusing on, and they're so busy with civil engineering. Transportation is just not something they are, I don't even think that that's something that their firm handles. But bringing someone in who could assist us with that, I think would be very helpful.
When do you have to present your budget to the council?
We are doing that in April.
Okay, because I really think that's a good idea. I do. I think having an
I mean,
agency.
actually hiring someone to work for the town would be a better idea, because if we hire someone, like down here at Murdoch Road, I've sat behind, in the past 2 weeks, I sat behind 2 semi-trucks trying to take a right on the old Mountain Road. You can't take a right if there's cars sitting there. So guess what they did? Sat through the light 3, 4 times, because they were gonna wait until somebody finally left and they could turn. So we need somebody who knows what's coming, what's already been approved, how this is going to affect our town, because right now, it's terrible. I got past the end of Eastway, went 7 cars went around me Thursday morning. Traffic was backed up. They went around me. Here's the police department, I'm right down there. They went around me at the light. Cars were coming this way, blowing their horns at me like I was doing something wrong. I'm like, I'm waiting for traffic to clear. But we truly need somebody on staff. I mean, that's just my personal opinion, but.
I volunteer my services at no cost to the town.
I like the idea that it's somebody who has our interests.
Yes.
And has that background or experience that can help and knows where we want to go and can help us make, with the exception of Mark, I mean, we're all lay people here, and so it helps when these big developers come in. I would feel better. Not that you guys don't have expert opinions.
Well,
I want
yeah.
real expert opinions.
Well, what they would be doing is they would, these TIAs that are produced by these traffic engineers, they would actually be doing that work for the town rather than us saying, okay, developer, we're requiring you to do this. They go hire people who are working for them, and then all of a sudden questions come up as to, traffic, did you use the right
formula.
Whatever did you use the right use? Are you using, or how are you looking? And then this way, they're working for the town, and I think it makes it a more transparent process, which I think is what we really ultimately want to achieve. We want to be able to bring a product to the council and to you all that you feel like, okay, this is what our traffic engineers are saying, this is what they are recommending, this is how, they know what the issues are, what the concerns are, they're looking at it. They are traffic engineers, so they're doing something very similar. But I just think it would help with that transparency. I'm not saying any traffic engineer that comes in here ever does anything that's not legal, because they do have PEs and they have license. And but I think it would be helpful for us to do to have a process like that.
Yeah, I
How
agree.
much does it typically cost to have one of those completed?
I can't, a lot. They're
So
expensive.
would it
Mark
not
may
be
have a better idea, but it's what would be happening, the system I worked under, we had Kimley Horn on retainer. So I guess that's a word for it. We really didn't pay them unless we used their services, but they would come in and they would have a contract with the town. The developer had a contract with the town. The developer paid the town. We turned around and paid Kimley Horn. So we weren't paying for it out of our pocket. It wasn't something the town funded. The developer was still funding it, but Kimley Horn worked for us. They had a contract with the town to produce those TIAs. And I would imagine they're 5 figures, a lot of these TIAs. The bigger ones, like the one up here that was done for Bering, was probably
I'm
a
sure we could
lot
hire
more than that.
somebody and they would probably accept that one fee for the whole year, and then we'd have an employee for the town. I mean, I know you're talking about having the other people pay
Well,
for it, but-
if we had an employee, they would not do TIAs.
Okay.
That's a specialty. Then we would hire an outside transportation engineering firm, because it is a pretty involved process. So maybe bigger cities do that, like the city of Charlotte may have people on staff doing this, but I have not ever worked anywhere where they had in-house TIAs being conducted.
Correct me if I'm wrong, if we have enough of them, and when you're saying 5 figures, I don't know if that's $99,000 or $10,000, but
Well, we wouldn't be
That's
paying
how
for them.
short-lived.
The town would not be paying for those.
Understood.
Yeah, yeah.
Your TIA, to like, they're doing a Walmart down here at Murdoch Road, that probably costs between $8,000 and $15,000.
Well, what I was gonna say is worst case scenario, it pays for itself. Best case scenario pays for itself. Worst case scenario would make some money.
No, you won't make money, because I
If you
mean,
did 10 a year, we
you
wouldn't make
couldn't,
money
I
or
mean,
pay for them.
Well, I don't think
to,
that's our
to,
goal.
to do that, you've got to do traffic counts. You gotta do them at AM and PM at peak hours for at least 7 days. You gotta pay somebody to go out there and have cars. You gotta go out and do some other studies, lane widths and some field investigation, a little bit of surveying. You've got, I mean, there's other pieces and parts of it. I mean, the one at Barium Springs was probably $40,000 to $60,000. That's just my guess. I may be way off.
More than one guy can do.
Yeah, I mean, one guy to write it, yes, but it takes a team to do it, because they go out and they have a survey crew survey it, and they have a team that goes out and does the traffic counts, and a team that does, the site visits, and they'll do drone, flights and see what you've got in topography and stuff like that, because you got to figure out your site and how you're going to balance the site for cuts and fills and site distances and all that good stuff. It's a lot of little steps, but it takes a lot of teamwork and different capacities to do it. To be able to review one, you can do it, and you just gotta take your time and doing it that way.
Well, I know a guy wants to do it, the whole deal for free.
I don't want to do it, but I can tell you right now. I mean,
So-
but if you've got somebody like myself that would at least be able to read them and ask questions, because, and I have to apologize to the engineers that I called egregious. They were egregious in what they were doing, to the point that they almost, I mean, I can almost question their license of the way they were doing things. They lied, and so ethically, that's between me and him, and I've already talked to him about it. But that is his responsibility. He has to sleep at night. I'll leave it at that.
I guess for me, Lynn, the issue that I see for us as a town is if we have people going to this company, and there are all these different companies doing the TIAs, no one really sees like what's already going in place over here and taking that into account, because I don't think anybody mentioned, well, why do we not have a turn-in lane there? Because we probably should have, but you see what I'm saying? If we had one company, which is what you're talking about doing, which I think is a great idea, then they could take all of what's already coming, we know is going to come, and help us to guide us.
Well, I think, and that was one of the things that we, and I understand your concern. I do think these people do look at the data that's collected with these other studies, because it's easier if you. But that was one of the questions that I had when we spoke, when Andrew and I met with Kimley Horn, was we really do need somebody to help us coordinate all these improvements, because since I've been here in a year and a half, I think there have been 20 I mean, I don't even know, I'm just throwing that number out there, but we've had a lot of TIAs, and a lot of them involve the same intersection. So we have one developer being told to put in this turn lane, and another developer being told, to put in a light, and another developer, and we really need someone to help us track that and coordinate that with DOT. Because the last thing we want is for DOT to start, okay, put the turn lane in, and then, I think that's come up here a lot, and then in 3 months, the TPA group comes in and says, well, we're ripping that out to put our improvement. Just somebody who can stay on top of that and help us coordinate it. And I think that would be very helpful. So thank you for mentioning that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent idea. I guess in the past, and hopefully that will alleviate that. In the past, they come to you, I guess, with, okay, we'll have TIA by meeting time. They don't have it when they go ahead and set up the time to have the meeting. Oh, we'll have it. And they said, okay, we'll have it. Didn't have it for us. Well, we'll have it for town council. Some of them didn't even have it for them. So that should eliminate that, I would think.
That is something we'll have to ask council for direction on, how they prefer to move forward with that, yes.
I think we as a board need to be able to see the TIA, at least,
Oh, I thought we already addressed that. I thought that was a done deal. Is that not something that we're taking to the board to vote on? That
Well,
was my understanding. Was
It,
that-
it,
I need some,
it's something that we would have to ask them for clarification on and how they want, what the timing of when they want the TIAs presented. So I'll keep you posted on that type of thing.
Yeah, because, I mean, that's one of the big issues I've had. We don't have it ready. Oh, we're gonna have it ready. Oh, well, we'll have it ready. Go ahead and vote on it. We're gonna have it ready for town council. They don't even have it ready for them.
Yeah.
I've seen that.
Yeah, and I think we've heard, we've heard that, it's important that you all have that is a requirement, at least for council. But more, you all would like to have it complete, at least the draft by the time it comes to you all. Which a lot of times, I mean, because to get DOT to approve a draft is a very lengthy process. So typically that's what we're looking at, even at the council level. So.
But I really like what you're talking about doing. I like that. I think that'll, everybody be on the same page.
I think it will help. Yeah.
Big overview of the whole thing. I like it. Any other business?
And one more thing. So, on the front setbacks that we talked about at the last meeting, one of the things that Mark brought up was, the design structure of those setbacks. And in the minute notes, it says you were gonna add some language to take before council. Did that go before council?
You're talking about the architectural standards that,
Mhm.
yes, and it was included, and they did approve it.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right, any other business? Is there a motion to adjourn?
so moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Nope.
Meeting is adjourned.
George, how did we get you here tonight? How did we get you here?
Well, I told you, all of them, I just can't make it.
I remember doing this song. Yeah.
Did we go?
Sure.
Should move someplace.
You know, thank you, she was here for me.
Well, we don't